Native Land Pod is a production of iHeart Radio in partnership with Reason Choice Media.
Welcome home, everybody. This is another mini pod. Andrew's got a beat going. I can't hear, but that's all right because I am still real clear. Hey, anyway, I ain't gonna give y'all all my flows. You know, Tiff be trying to throw me off.
I love it. Bless the people.
But today it is a special episode because we're gonna do a little NLP town hall. We got some questions that y'all have asked, and we want to make sure that we get to answer them. So we're gonna kick it off with this.
Let go.
Hi, Native Land Pod. Thank you so much for all that you do, Andrew, Tiffany, and Angela. I've been following you since day one, and you've just done an excellent job, and you continue to do so. I so appreciate you. I have 2 questions and also 2 resources, but I've got to make the 90-second deadline, so I'm going to go with my questions first. I'm concerned about this. You won't have to vote again. Comment that was made to a group by the current president-elect, and I want to know how we can fight that, and if it's even legal, but he gets out of stuff that's legal anyway. That's number 1. Number 2, the privatization of the weather, which with climate change and extreme weather events is concerning, particularly because it would mean that people could not protect themselves by knowing what's going on and what they need to do. Those are my 2 action things.
Okay.
First of all, did y'all feel the weight of her having to say president-elect?
Yes.
I mean, I
I'm not saying
having to hear it.
heavy.
Yeah.
I call him Donald Trump.
Heavy.
I'll be honest, I don't think there is anything we can do about the not voting again right now. I just to remind people, they don't officially take power until after inauguration, January 20th. I had people call me over Thanksgiving like, they ain't messing with you yet. I'm like, they're not in the White House yet. So that happens after inauguration. So we have to see what policies they put forth, but they've been eroding our democratic core principles for a long time. I mean, we've already seen this with restrictive voting laws that took place across the country post Shelby v. Holder, which was, of course, the Supreme Court decision that rolled back voting rights. So I don't know how to attack an attack that we have not seen from this administration yet. I think we have to brace ourselves, wait for them to take power, and be ready to fight when it's time. But for the month of December, we're on strike, Black women. You have a right to rest.
Uh-oh. I would also add, Tiffany, we should also take them at their word.
Yeah.
So the good news is that they've pretty much told us what they want to do, who they want to go after, how they want to dismantle, and who they want to do the dismantling. And I just think we've got institutions. Yes. We have organizations out there. Yes. There'll be some folks who will buck the system. I think, obviously, the fact that the final, congressional seat has been decided, it went to the Democrat. It lessens the divide in the House. I think they're now at 5, maybe 3 to 5 vote margin. So I think more than anything, y'all, we're going to have to be ready mentally ready, but then also our individuals, organizations, institutions, community organizations, and groups, we're going to have to be prepared to activate when it comes to fighting for ourselves. Now, if beyond that you've got energy, fight for everybody else. But I also believe by fighting for ourselves, we will undoubtedly ensure to everybody else's safety, as we always have. They benefit off of our labor. And the other thing I would simply say is to please take care of our mental, because we can't do this every day, 365 times 4. It's going to be too much.
And then just real quick, the House majority is 2 or 3. They're still not clear. So it's a 2 or 3 seat majority. For this one, I'm going to say that I think a lot of that hangs in the balance with the courts and the Supreme Court, which is also still very scary. We've watched them piecemeal destroy the Voting Rights Act of 1965, something that used to be supported and reauthorized every year on a bipartisan level. So I'm not sure. The privatization of weather, we might get to that another time because we want to stay on this broader theme about democracy hanging in the balance. And with that, we'll go to our next question.
Good evening, Angela, Tiffany, and my man Andrew. This is Monte from Maryland, and I had a question for you. Just like you, I've mourned, I've asked numerous questions, I've avoided watching the news, and now I'm at the point of acceptance, and now I'm wondering, based on something that you mentioned in your mini pod about how we as Democrats failed at the ground roots level of reaching out to everybody and organizing at that place. What should we do right now? we got 4 years of BS that we know we're going to have to deal with, but what should we be doing right now to prepare for those midterm elections, and especially for that presidential election in 4 years? Yeah, we're going to have a rough road to hoe, but it is what it is now. But what can we be doing right now? What do we do at the ground roots level? How do we organize at this point? What can someone like me who does not live in a swing state do to affect the overall for the country? I just want us to have a goal and something in mind to motivate us for these next few years as we deal with what we're going to deal with. But any ideas you guys have will be most appreciated. Thank you for all you do, and welcome home.
Awesome. Y'all, I know I
Welcome
answered a
home,
part of this through sort of a political lens in one of our main episodes. I wonder if y'all had other ideas outside of the whole preparing, running, training, and paying attention to local offices. Are there other things that may be non-electoral you'd recommend?
Well, he lives in Maryland, but that doesn't mean that you can't impact other people. Angela worked on Andrew's campaign. Andrew was in Florida. You can give $5 or $500 to candidates. Pay attention to state races. The state houses, a lot are Republican controlled, and that's where a lot of this shitty policy comes from that bubbles up to the federal government. So make sure you pay attention to that. If you have children, show up at those school board elections, because a lot of people use school boards as a launching pad to launch their careers. And lately it's been a conservative launching pad to be a crusader against these made up cultural wars. There's also GOTV efforts. There is no such thing as off election years. Every year there are elections at the state, federal, and local level. So yeah, you can work on a campaign. You can door knock. There are issue campaigns. So a ton of things to do. As you see it.
I have to tell you guys something that was on my heart while I was hearing him talk. And that is, I think that there's way too much attention being placed on GOTV, on getting out the vote. For those of you who don't know what that is, way too much attention on how we get ready for the next election. I think the biggest challenge with Black political power is that we rev up and ramp up to fall back. And we rev up and ramp up to fall back. If there is no off season, as Andrew said, he said, Black women, you don't get to go on strike. There's no days off. What does that mean? It means that our organizing isn't just about protecting our voting rights or exercising our franchise at the ballot box. It is holding people accountable to an agenda that we want to see happen on the policy level, and in policy on every single level of government. And I think the other thing that we have to be mindful of is how we talk about people. There's a lot of conversation about swing states, but not as much about swing voters. There's a lot of conversation about what people needed to hear in this election and not about what people need to hear, period. You cannot forget the humanity of a person and only consider them when there's time for a transaction. I don't like to be engaged by transactional people. I hate it. I have a point of privilege because I'm engaged all the time in the electoral system because I'm a strategist. This is the work that I've been doing all of my adult life. There are many other people who are gravitated to and tossed aside every 4 years. That is not sustainable. It's not okay. And we got to deal with the elephant in the room. And the elephant is getting bigger because, pun intended, because the GOP is making inroads by talking to the forgotten amongst us because we've decided that they're low propensity or they don't turn out or they're low information. So they don't deserve a conversation. They don't deserve to be asked what they need to hear or see or feel from their politicians. That's not a good strategy going forward for us as Black people or, frankly, for elected officials. We avoid those conversations because we don't want to argue, but not having those arguments means these people just be like, forget it. I don't think that's a good strategy. That's the one thing I hate about DC the most is the transaction. Imagine when you don't deal with politics at all and they treating you like, did you vote? Tiff told us that when we were knocking doors. Andrew, remember Tiff was like, can we not start the conversation with these people? Like, did you vote? Tiff was like, let me talk to this lady about her dog.
Well,
Crack
shoot,
that woman right open.
They weren't having us talk about the election, folks. When the other piece that I loved about what you were saying there is that we're also always doing the talking, but not a lot of the listening.
Yes.
And when we sat and listened, everything she disavowed about politics, she validated about politics and about herself, her engagement, and her interests. All we had to do was listen, and then give it right back to her. We were like, girl, you said you don't like people. You love people and they love you. It's clear. So I love, the listening part. And the other piece you said about, avoiding the hard conversations and then them hearing from the other side. The avoidance of the hard conversations have led people to believe we're not talking to them, period.
Yes.
So it has the reverse effect. You don't want to get into conflict, and they're saying you're not coming up my street at all.
Yes.
You don't have a thing to say about my lived experience because everything I do hear you talk about ain't got nothing to do with me, and I don't see myself reflected in it.
So true.
That part has to change for sure.
What's up, Native Land Pod? My name is Tubman Harriet, and I'm calling in from the great state of Georgia. First, please stop hanging your heads down low. I'm proud of you all. You all had an amazing run, and you did an invaluable service to our people. You survived what I consider to be public lynchings, and you upset the system by providing a voice for the voiceless at a time when we lost a lot of our political commentators, like Trevor Noah. You all stepped in and filled a gap that was so necessary. So thank you all for what you've done, and thank you for not abandoning us. And I would love to see you all pivot. I would love to see more of an offensive posture. Not so much commentary on what the Trump administration is doing, but what is the resistance movement doing? And to that end, I want to call to light a call to action from the Working Families Party, because I recently had a come to Jesus moment, attending a mass call in which everyday Americans have been invited to meet in small groups, 3 to 7 people, large group, no more than 50. You can assemble in libraries and community spaces and homes and restaurants with the intention of holding space for one another, taking a look at where we've come from, where we are, and where we're going.
Nice.
I love it. Tiff, you were quiet on the last one. What you think about the small groups idea? Getting together one by one, 2 by 2.
Yeah. I mean, I think that is, and I want to clarify something, because when we say grassroots, I sometimes think people don't fully grasp the concept of what that means. Grassroots is your community. Even if you're upper crust, wealthy white woman, you can gather in your community. In fact, I would encourage y'all to gather in your communities and have some necessary conversations about rights and sharing in the responsibility of preserving democracy. Any place that people gather to do work, people always have to tell me, don't try to eat the elephant. Chew off a little piece and do what you can do. And if everybody does a little, nobody has to do a lot. So I like that. I gotta say, though, I think y'all gonna get on y'all nerves the last half of this podcast. I don't know how I feel about taking emojis.
I like
from
it.
Viewers.
I love that too.
I'm gonna tell you my challenge. That's what I'm saying. It wasn't a real name, and it was an emoji. And I just think with the rapidly advancing generative AI, the point of our videos is we want to make sure you are a real, authentic person. I believe she's a real, authentic. So this ain't nothing against you, Tubman Harriet. We believe you, sis, that we know.
Tubman Harriet.
Yes. But I'm like, I want to see people's actual faces to know. Because every time you see people on Twitter or, any of these social media, well, mainly Twitter, and it's like, you don't think we know y'all pretending to be black? Like, we know how black people talk. Sometimes they post things. Like,
she
that ain't
sounded
real.
like a sister to me.
She is,
but also,
but
what
it's
if she
not
was
about
like
her.
a burn victim or something?
I get all that. It wasn't about her. I want to be really clear.
Shot.
I'm not saying anything negative about her.
Of course.
I believe her to be real.
Nick
I'm just
going
saying,
off in the text messages. They're talking about he agree with you. Okay, Nick, you told us beforehand
too. When it comes to AI and authenticity and hearing from our viewers, I think there has
AI
to be
in the next podcast.
I think there has to be some clear guidelines on who we're platforming and how we're platforming people, because we don't want to be caught out there with some Project Veritas video coming in here. So
that's real. I feel you.
Anyway,
well, just to add credibility to her video, to her emoji video. Our producer, Loren, said she was on the same call. So at least we can validate that. I know Tiff likes us to check our sources.
But again, I just want to be clear. I wasn't talking about her. I'm saying in general, when it comes to people submitting.
You don't want emoji videos.
Emoji videos, for many reasons.
Can they do like black screen? Like,
then it's not a video.
I don't think she's gonna want that.
Profile.
I'm just saying how I feel. It's a democracy. If y'all don't mind it,
I think your point is fair, and I think
fair.
it's something we're gonna have to be increasingly concerned about, given the direction this next administration tends to go. So I feel that
technology. So
I just
I'm gonna be AI in the next podcast.
AI.
Well, we know you, so.
But you ain't gonna know like.
I don't know.
Only gonna know if my eyebrows stay over here.
I
won't know your
know.
gestures.
All right, I want to get this last one because I know this last video. I think I disagree with this too, but let's roll it.
Not you tipping off that way. My God. Well, welcome home.
Based on what y'all told me, but let me hear it.
Okay, let's see. Maybe you'll agree.
Hey, Native Land Pod. My name is Rika. I am from Seattle. Hey, Angela. So I believe that we lost this election on education. And when you're not educated about how this country is run and civics, you will vote against your best interests. So here's what I propose. Trump is going to elect 15 people to his cabinet, maybe 16 with Elon Musk. And then there's the president and vice president. What does the attorney general do? What does the vice president do? What does the secretary of state do? What is Vivek and Elon Musk going to be doing, right? So that's what, like 15, 18, 20 people that we should be watching. What if we divvied up, gave homework to 15, 20 people in the Native Land Pod universe? So for example, say Matt Gaetz, say he's appointed. Say I, Rika, am assigned to follow all things Matt Gaetz and what he is doing as the Attorney General and what the Attorney General of the United States does and can do, has done in the past. What if we divvied all of that up? Somebody else had Secretary of State and so on and so forth. And then we reported back to the Native Land Pod to let each other know what is happening, right? Because we're all so busy. There's so much going on. We're just trying to survive that all of us don't have time to do all of that homework. So what if we collectively did the homework together and educated each other on civics in this country? That's what I propose. So, yeah.
I love this question. I do want to clarify to my homegirl in Seattle that we don't know how many people Trump is going to make cabinet level. It is going to be more than 12. So I just want to make sure that we're clear
it's
on 26,
that. But 26 appointments that need Senate confirmation.
Yes, but they're not all cabinet level, even when they're Senate confirmed. But I do know they're greater than 12. So I just want to make sure that we double down on that really quick. And then Tiff, I know, had a thought about being reporters. And then I have a thought about that too.
And I have a question. We don't have time to get into it on this podcast.
She said report back?
She said report back.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. We don't have time to get into it on this podcast, but I have a question about what is the cabinet? Because like the U.S. trade rep is part of the cabinet. It's Senate confirmed. And I remember this because I had an argument in the newsroom like 15 years ago. And I was like, yeah, but that's not cabinet level. And they're like, no, trade rep is cabinet. So anyway, at a later time, we can talk about what constitutes a member of the cabinet. But
Tiff, this is a good point. Let me just tell you this one thing. A president also has discretion on who they decide is cabinet level beyond those departments as well. The trade rep is generally cabinet level, but I think that is that it is cabinet level regardless. But there are other appointments that the president can make and decide that they're going to be cabinet level. The
president can also decide what agencies are housed in D.C. So Donald Trump, through executive action, can say, I want the Department of Defense housed out of Mar-a-Lago or next door to Mar-a-Lago.
Yeah, of course he will.
And over 85% of federal government workers don't work in D.C., but the agencies are housed here. So anyway, speaking of civics, you can see that even we need a check-in on civics sometimes. So to be continued, the conversation on what constitutes cabinet. But yeah, this is my challenge with this, you guys, honestly. I think citizen journalism is amazing, and I've seen people do amazing things there. But to arm people who aren't vetted, who we don't know, and say, yes, go back and report. One, to even get access to information sometimes, it's not behind a paywall, but what I would call a journalism wall. Everything is not on Google, and I think that's part of my challenge with people who go on air and they ask an assistant to pull me the top 5 facts about this 5 minutes before they go on air. And it's like, care enough to become a subject matter expert. Go down that rabbit hole. Read. When I go after things, when I study things, when I want to talk about prisons, I didn't do that 5 minutes before the show. I spent 3 days, looking at prisons, pulling up old segments I did. And that does require a commitment. It does require a skill set. It does require having access, a press pass, a phone call, knowing how to navigate these systems to get information to make sure. So if we're arming people to do that, it's still going to require a level of fact checking. Misinformation and disinformation is a huge deal. And even in our comments and in videos I've seen so many people get things wrong, quote something, misstate something. So I think people come here to make sure that they're getting vetted information that's factual. At least that's what I take that very, very seriously, as you guys know. And I try my best to do that here. So I just wonder logistically how that will work. If we're saying, yeah, go out there and cover it. I like the commitment of saying, yeah, we want to be a part of it too. But on the back end, having to fact check that and vet that, I think is probably some staffing issues that we couldn't support, to be honest. But I love the idea, sister. I'm not putting, I love that you said it. And my co-host probably love the idea. But I'm just thinking from a journalistic standard, a newsroom standard of how to make sure that we're always saying factual things, that we took actual time, that we didn't Google in 5 minutes. Because that is, any journalist will tell you, that is not research, and that's not how you get the best.
I first of all, complete respect for your position here. And you as a journalist, I wouldn't expect anything else from you, Tiffany. Certainly if you heard the word reporting. I think what I heard was her saying, and report back to the native land, sort of community, what you're following, looking at, so on and so forth. And quite frankly, some of the same concerns you raised there may still occur. I do love the idea of divvying up the work. And what I heard from that is we all share in this commitment to hold this government accountable. Let's hold the cabinet members accountable, which, by the way, the cabinet, of course, exists. The cabinet is an advisory group to the president, but what makes you a cabinet member through the Constitution of the United States, those 15, and to add a cabinet member, it must be approved by the Congress, of course, are those who fall in the line of succession, those who can become president should the president be incapacitated, going down the line of succession from the vice president, speaker of the House, president of the Senate pro tem. It then goes to the members of the cabinet, the 15 members of the cabinet, which the order of who would then come next is based off of the age in which that department was created. So starting with Secretary of State, onward and forward. But nonetheless, the whole idea of the civics lesson, I think it's really powerful.
Yes.
More than what's happening with one agency over another from time to time, somebody who is finding these really nuanced questions about the government that may seem insignificant, but actually show up more often in our lives than we know. And educating, schooling us on those kinds of things, I think that is something that would be good for the show. And either through our own research and knowledge of a certain area or through a research assistant, we can, of course, do the fact-checking piece. But love the idea of citizen reporting on basically what makes a democracy and what are the civics components of this government that we all have an obligation, I think, to have access to.
Just really quick, I like what you just said too, AG. Tiff, I agree with you on the fact checking piece. I think that's too much for us to carry. But if we use our website, which is nativelandpod.com, as a place for people to kind of do a group assignment, I'll tell you all, I'm a collaborative learner. I loved group assignments growing up. Even when we do our pre-production calls in the morning, I so love those because I'm like, oh, I didn't think about this way or whatever. So I like the idea of, one, folks feeling not isolated in this administration that is coming up. 2, do a cabinet watch. We can even call it NLP Cabinet Watch or NLP Fam Cabinet Watch. And people are just like, hey, did you hear this thing? Is this true? Is this real? And they can even be kind of a fact check source for each other. And maybe each week we can look in there and see if there's something that we want to share with the broader community outside of that, which in some ways this would function like a Reddit, but specifically, on our site, if we have that functionality that could be built in, Lolo, that would be great. But I really like the idea of a group assignment where people do not feel isolated in this upcoming administration. And Lolo said that she will have details on how we could do something like that next week, to the extent that Tiff also agrees that this might be a group assignment that's worth continuing and considering.
Can I
love that.
We're over time, but I want to say something really quickly. Group assignments, maybe there's another mini pod. I like group assignments, but I'm going to tell you, I'm not a collaborative learner. When I say group assignment, like if the three of us going to do a group assignment, it's like, okay, I'm going to go off and do my thing. Andrew, you go do your part. Angela, do your part. And then let's come back together.
Report
right.
back.
And see if these parts fit. I don't like being in a room, like spitballing. I'm like, no. I have a clear, like other people are a distraction sometimes when I'm like clear-minded and focused. So I don't know. I just think that's a work style. I'd be curious how...
That's a mini pod.
Yes, maybe.
Well,
maybe.
I don't like it because I always end up with the work.
I agree with that too. There's definitely times where that happens, but I do think that there's a space for brainstorming. There's a space to go back and do your work and come back. And I think no matter what, it's going to be some of that because we're talking about a virtual group assignment. We're not telling people get on Zoom. Yeah. We're just saying you can share what you're learning on kind of like a Reddit type of a board or something on our site, which we don't have yet. And Lolo is telling me to wait to talk about that any further next week. But our
great
podcast,
ideas. Great ideas.
I love it. I love these questions.
Ideas.
Yeah. Comments, suggestions, all of it.
We just want y'all involved. Like our highest hope for this podcast is not that you listen to us every week. It's that you feel inspired to go and do some of this work yourself, whether it's running for office, whether it's volunteering in your community or overseas like Lolo did, or it is donating to campaigns or keeping us all in check about what's really going on and accountable.
So and listen every week.
Yes, exactly. Well, anyway, welcome home, y'all. Listen and talk. We talk to y'all next time. We way over time. Bye.
Bye. See you. Welcome home.
Native Land Pod is a production of iHeartRadio in partnership with Reason Choice Media. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, visit the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.